Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. May I invite you to take your seats. Welcome to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs of the Second Chamber of the Dutch Parliament. This meeting was set up to hear from experts about the topic of medical evacuations of Gazan children. We are still working on the connection with the experts that we have online. The problem is that they can't hear what we are saying in this room. So therefore we will switch the sequence of this meeting. That means that we will start off with the Dutch part of the meeting. We zullen beginnen met het Nederlandstalige deel. And afterwards, after about 15 minutes, we will switch over to the second part of the meeting. So that means that block 2 and block 1 of this meeting will be conducted in reverse order. And therefore I'd like to invite the speakers from the second part of the meeting to take up their seats here. I think they're already here. Yeah, that is the case. Mr. Sana, who is a doctor and works for Doctors Without Borders, Artsen zonder Grenzen. Ik ga trouwens verder in het Nederlands. De heer Dirk Segaar, hoofd internationale hulp bij het Nederlandse Rode Kruis. Die zie ik nog niet. Dus ik weet niet of hij nog niet aanwezig is. Nee, oké. Nou, dan hoop ik dat hij zo meteen kan aansluiten. En professor Dr. Hans van Goudoever, hij is voorzitter van de Raad van Bestuur van het Universitair Medisch Centrum Amsterdam. Van harte welkom alle drie. Ik zou even kort voorstellen aan de aanwezige Kamerleden. Dat is de heer Van Baarden van Denk, mevrouw Dobbe van de SP, mevrouw Piri van de GroenLinks Partij van de Arbeid, de heer Boswijk van het CDA. En die moet zo meteen al de bijeenkomst verlaten voor een debat. Maar die kan in ieder geval luisteren naar de introducties. De heer Stoffer van de SGP, mevrouw Koekoek van Volt, mevrouw Hirsch van GroenLinks Partij van de Arbeid, de heer Van Kampen van de VVD en de heer Van den Burg eveneens van de VVD. Van harte welkom allen. Na de introductie van de experts zal ik iedereen in de gelegenheid stellen om 1 vraag te stellen. Na die vraag kan dan meteen antwoord komen. En als dat allemaal snel gaat, dan is er ook de gelegenheid voor een tweede vraag. Het is uiteraard een onderwerp waar iedereen veel gevoelens bij heeft en ook een duidelijke mening over heeft. Maar deze bijeenkomst is echt puur bedoeld om informatie op te halen bij onze experts en dus niet om politieke statements te maken. Ik ga dan allereerst het woord geven aan professor Dr. van Goudoever. En ik zou u willen uitnodigen om ons in 3 minuten te vertellen wat u ons zou willen vertellen over het onderwerp medische evacuaties van kinderen uit Gaza.
Goedemorgen allemaal en dank u wel, meneer de voorzitter. Fijn om het hier toe te kunnen lichten. Ik spreek hier namens NFU-NL, of UMC-NL, de Universitair Medische Centra van Nederland. Maar eenzelfde soort geluid komt ook van de Nederlandse Vereniging van Ziekenhuizen. Wij hebben als zorgorganisaties een duidelijk standpunt over wat we zien en wat we horen over de met name kinderen, ernstig gewonde kinderen en chronisch zieke kinderen die vanuit de Gaza-strook zijn geëvacueerd naar omliggende landen. Daarvan zien we en horen we ook van de WHO, dat de capaciteit om dit soort kinderen met name op te vangen daar ontoereikend is. En wij stellen ons op het standpunt dat wij de capaciteit hebben en de kennis en de kunde hebben om, mits de regering dat wil, de evacuees uit dat soort gebieden hier kunnen gaan behandelen. Onder dus natuurlijk de voorwaarde dat het legaal ze hierheen worden gebracht en dat er ook de financiering daarvoor toereikend is. De capaciteit die we daarvoor hebben is afdoende aanwezig. De wil onder de zorgverleners is ook afdoende aanwezig. Dus daar staan we allemaal klaar voor.
Veel dank. Dan geef ik nu graag het woord aan de heer Sana namens Artsen zonder Grenzen. Als u op de knop drukt voor ja. Dan,
ik ben niet ervaren zoals u te zien en spreken hier. Dank aan Artsen zonder Grenzen dat zij mij ook voorgedragen hebben om hier ook wat informatie en toelichting te geven. En bij mij gaat het eigenlijk over met name, want er zijn heel veel kinderen die heel veel zorg in Gaza nodig hebben. Het gaat over de zorg van kinderen die ernstige infectieziektes hebben, maar ook kinderen die vreselijke amputaties hebben gehad, maar ook kinderen met kanker. En we weten, voor kinderen met kanker is het ook heel belangrijk dat zij de zorg meteen gestart wordt. Als ik een kind met kanker in mijn praktijk heb op dit moment, en dan zal ik bellen met een van de beste kinderkankercentra in Europa die wij hebben, met PMC, Prins Maxima Centrum, en zij kunnen het kind ook behandelen. Maar het lastige is op dit moment, ik ben als arts al langere tijd bezig met collega's in Gaza in contact. Is het via telecommunicatie of is het via op een andere manier ze te helpen? En in contact gekomen op dit moment met 3 kinderen met kanker. Er zijn natuurlijk al heel veel kinderen met kanker. En waarvoor ook de Prins Maxima Centrum bereid is om ook die kinderen te helpen. Maar laten wij even niet vergeten, het zijn 3 kinderen, zijn symbool voor heel veel andere kinderen die ook heel veel zorg nodig hebben. En er zijn in de regio wordt op dit moment ook heel veel kinderen opgevangen. Maar het feit dat wij in Nederland een van de beste zorg hier hebben, dat brengt ons voor ons ook met name de verantwoordelijkheid. En ook niet alleen naar de kinderen toe, maar eigenlijk ook naar onze collega's in de regio, dat wij die kinderen hier helpen. Dat wij ons steentje bijdragen. Ik ben een trotse Nederlandse arts en ik heb hier geleerd hoe je het beste een toonaangevende zorg kan leveren aan patiënten. En hoe die patiënten ook eigenlijk kinderen van een gezonde levensjaar lang kunnen genieten. En wij kunnen denk ik niet als arts, wanneer die vraag bij ons nu binnengekomen is. En ik weet, meneer Paternotte zei ook net van het is geen verkiezingsuitslag en we horen ook geen verkiezingsverhaal. Maar we horen ook heel veel mensen die zeggen, ja maar wat about andere kinderen? Als arts hebben wij, als arts heb ik, als arts heeft PMC, maar heel veel andere mensen, heel veel andere artsen hebben te maken met deze kinderen. En kinderen die waar van Save the Children of collega's van Artsen zonder Grenzen ook mee te maken hebben. Wij moeten deze kinderen helpen. Als op mijn praktijk een kind komt die hulp nodig heeft, ga ik ook niet zeggen, maar de andere kind in een andere straat, wat moet ik met dat kind doen? Dus voor mij is dat belangrijk. En ik wil even een brief voorlezen van Prins Maxima Centrum. En dan laat het misschien even zien, als we het heel vaak hebben over de zorg in de regio, wat het kan betekenen. De beschrijving van een Prins Maxima Centrum, ga ik PMC hierna noemen, bundelen wij kennis, zorg, onderzoek op 1 plek. Met 1 doel, iedere kind met kanker de beste kans op genezing en zo goed mogelijk toekomst geven. Als grootste kinderkankercentrum van Europa combineren wij toonaangevende zorg, innovatieve behandelingen en baanbrekend onderzoek. Zo bouwen wij elke dag een toekomst waarin kinderkanker niet langer dodelijk hoeft te zijn. Het is niet mogelijk om de kinderkankerzorg die wij hier in Nederland hebben met een pakket met DHL of PostNL naar de regio te gaan sturen. Het duurt jaren voordat wij zo'n zorg hebben opgebouwd. En ik denk dat dat brengt ons die verantwoordelijkheid die we hier met elkaar hebben. En dus op dit moment gaat het om 3 kinderen. En misschien zijn er honderden kinderen die gewoon die kankerzorg nodig hebben. Maar wij in Nederland, wij hebben tot nu toe 0 kinderen naar Nederland gebracht om ze te helpen. En dat kan niet. Wij kunnen nu hiervoor zorgen dat wij de kinderen een toekomst hier kunnen geven. Ik hoor ook heel vaak, ja, maar als kinderen die visum krijgen, ja, misschien wordt moeilijk gedaan dat een ouder meekomt. Beste Kamerleden, er is een meisje, Rahaf, 12, die we ook met collega's uit Nederland met teleconsultatie hielpen. Het meisje was 12 jaar en ze woog 12 kilo. Met hulp van collega's hier hebben we uiteindelijk gezorgd dat zij 17, 18 kilo is geworden. Kunt u zich voorstellen, een meisje van 12 jaar, 12 pakken melk. Zij is uiteindelijk naar de Verenigde Arabische Emiraten geëvacueerd, na aandacht wat er ook in media was geweest. Daar is een moeder meegegaan. Er staan de beelden op RTL-journaal. Dus dat een moeder of een vader meegaat met een patiënt die naar buitenland gaat, is natuurlijk, dat is een open deur voor iedereen. We hadden ook net over verkiezingen. Ik werk in de praktijk in Leerdam op het moment. En daar loopt, langs mijn praktijk loopt ook Bijbelbelt. Maar wij hebben daar heel veel assistenten die vanuit de SGP zijn. Trouwens, groeten van u en meneer Stoffers. Een van mijn assistenten is een fervente SGP-stemmer. Maar ook collega's die vanuit GroenLinks PvdA stemmen. Of collega's die helemaal niet stemmen. Toen ik vandaag deze kant op kwam, zei mijn collega tegen mij, vanuit de SGP ook, vanuit de andere partij, zet hem op. Zet hem op, want over kinderen, over de rug van kinderen kunnen wij geen politiek voeren. Als wij deze kinderen laten vallen, dan kunnen wij onszelf niet in de spiegel kijken. Wij hebben compassie, dat hebben wij als dokters geleerd. Ik denk dat als mens, vanuit welke achtergrond ook, dan kun je vanuit compassie handelen. En als wij dat niet doen, en als wij in geopolitieke toestanden aan de rug van kinderen gaan hangen, dan gaan kinderen zeker dood. En daarvoor wil ik toch het bericht laten zien. Laatste opmerking, meneer de voorzitter. Dit is het meisje Jude Awad. Misschien hebben jullie veel over haar gehoord. Ik heb toestemming en dringend verzoek van haar moeder om dit hier te laten zien. Meisje is 15 maanden. 4 weken heb ik geprobeerd met heel veel collega's. Heel veel collega's, ook hier van het Kamerleden. Vanuit de PMC konden wij de zorg geleverd worden. Er was geld. Maar wat een collega zei heel mooi, er was geld, er was zorg, maar er ontbrak aan menselijkheid. En wij kunnen vandaag die menselijkheid teruggeven. Laten wij alsjeblieft zorgen dat het meisje, dat had misschien ons kind kunnen zijn, ons neefje kunnen zijn, niet dood laten gaan. Haar geopolitieke postcode mag niet uitmaken. Dank u wel.
Dank u wel, meneer Sana, voor uw introductie. Now I'm going to look at Mr. Papercorn, because I understood that you wanted to address the Foreign Affairs Committee in English. I think you also understand Dutch. Would you be okay in addressing us in English, but then answering the questions that may be posed in Dutch? Because, no, rather not?
Yes, good morning. Goedemorgen. Yeah, that's no problem. That shouldn't be a problem for me. So definitely. Now, I understand there were some colleagues, English speakers, so let me do this in English. I can answer the questions in Dutch. So my name is Dr. Rick Papercorn. I'm the WHO representative for what we call occupied Palestinian territory. I've been here for more than 4.5 years before this crisis exploded. I came to Gaza every month for 1 or 2 weeks, and since this crisis exploded in October 23, since November 23, I've been here every other month to work with my team. We have a large team in Gaza, East Jerusalem, and in the West Bank. So I've stayed 2, 3, 4 weeks, and now again, greetings from Gaza. I'm here now in Deir Bala. I just was yesterday in Gaza City, and this afternoon I will go back to Nasser Medical Complex. Now, let's focus on medevac. And I think I shared, by the way, with you a presentation I wanted to give, so please have a look at that. I also sent out a 2-page update. WHO is leading and coordinating all medevacs currently. And just the day, last Monday, we actually medevaced another 180 patients and their companions. Of course, companions are always important. Why medevac? So just realize, before this crisis exploded, between 50 to 100 patients per day were referred from Gaza to East Jerusalem hospitals in the West Bank. Between 50 and 100. So that's between 1,000 and 2,000 patients per month. Mainly for non-communicable diseases, oncology, cardiovascular, etc., more complex. Now, since this crisis exploded, that's not there anymore. So what has happened on medevac? Up till now, more than 7,041 patients have been medevaced, of which, I want to stress, 5,405 children. So 7,841, a huge number. Initially, WHO, we played more facilitating and supportive role. The initial 3,500 to 4,000 patients and plus their companions went through the Rafah crossing to Egypt. When that was closed in June 2024, etc., we had a much bigger task. We always, as WHO, did a lot of internal medevac. So I've been on many of these missions where we get patients out from the north to other hospitals for better care, but also to get them out from the north and other places, and then organize the medevac. So since June 24, Rafah crossing closed, the only exit was Kerem Shalom. Since then, we manage all processes. We get the patients out, the companions, we take care of them, and we make sure that they are sent to the countries either through Ramon Airport, through other countries, or through Jordan. What is important, I mean, like people always ask us, so why is there such a need? And I think the destruction in Gaza is beyond belief, especially the also health facilities, the insufficient medical supplies, the capacity, which has been depleted, etc. So there's even much more need for referral. 90% of the health infrastructure is damaged or destroyed. But we also see what are the biggest categories for medevacs. So first one is trauma. We roughly can say that half of the cases in need are trauma cases. This afternoon, WHO will launch a report, and you will hear from the 165,000 injured people in Gaza, one quarter of them, more than 40,000, will need lifelong assistive technology. But anyhow, so trauma, then oncology, ophthalmology, congenital anomalies, etc. So 7,800 patients, that sounds like a lot. The needs are much larger. So we estimate, together with the Ministry of Health and health partners, that there's still need for 15,600 patients to be medevaced, who needs medical evacuation outside the Gaza Strip. Now, currently, the top 10 referral destinations, so initially that was Egypt, almost 4,000 patients. Then actually very much in the region, United Arab Emirates with close to 1,500 patients, Qatar close to 1,000, Turkey. EU countries, I must say, I'm really disappointed. We talk about 350 patients, and the majority of that is Italy, Bulgaria, maybe a few in Spain, etc. I know the discussions, I'm Dutch, I follow the discussions. I think it's way too late. It's way too late. It's quite astounding that this takes so much time. But anyhow, it's good to hear that there's some review on this process currently also going out in the Netherlands. Important to know, we rightfully so, people ask me what's the system. So there's a system in place, and I want to stress that WHO, we are not selecting patients, we are not prioritizing patients or companions. Medical doctors at hospitals, medical specialists, they will assess this patient, can we treat them in Gaza, yes or no? Should the patient be referred? There's a medical referral committee, etc. So finally, there's categories for urgent, life-saving, general urgent, and also chronic diseases urgent, and chronic diseases less urgent. This list are made, then countries which are willing to receive patients, then they report to WHO. Some countries, they have preferences. We see a lot of preferences for children. I will get back to that later. And then we try to match the lists, and then we will carry out the medevac. That brings me to a point. From the 15,600 patients which still need medical evacuation outside the Gaza Strip, we estimate that roughly 3,800 of them are children. So we all want to prioritize children. I understand that very well, including myself, including WHO, and we carry this out. We take high risk to carry out all these operations. However, I also want to make a plea. We have to respect priority lists coming from the medical specialist and the medical referral committee. And it is sometimes it almost feels like too much cherry picking. I just want to stress that. Yes, children are top priority, but I've seen many older children, many young men and women, elderly, who also need to be medevaced. So I hope there's always a combination. Let me go to the key asks. What do we know? What would we like to see from the honourable Dutch parliamentarians, but all over? And we've had discussions with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs from the Netherlands about this as well. So first one, critically important, that is advocacy with the Israeli authorities to restore the medical evacuation corridor, pathway, to the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The West Bank and East Jerusalem hospitals are ready to receive their Gaza brothers, sisters, families, etc. That should never have been stopped. It's the most cost-effective way. It's the easiest way. It's the traditional referral pathway. Now, if you ask me now, could the West Bank and East Jerusalem, receive 15,600 critical patients? No. But they definitely, it would really be a little game changer, and they could probably receive over 2,000 over a relatively quicker period. That is, I think, probably the most important. Secondly,
Mr. Peperkorn, I hate to interrupt you, but I really want to allow the parliamentarians to ask some questions. So.
Okay, but the second 2 points is we need more advocacy with receiving countries. I mean, to receive more patients. And definitely, we want to expand. We are ready to expand as WHO, more medevac, more days, etc. We need to be supported for that because those operations are incredibly costly. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peperkorn, the WHO representative for the occupied Palestinian territories. I'll proceed in Dutch for this part of the meeting. En ik ga dan de vragenronde doen. Ik zal eerst alle fracties het woord geven en dan nog de fracties die eventueel dubbel vertegenwoordigd zijn. En ik wil u vragen om de vraag te stellen zonder introducties. De heer Van Baarle van Denk.
Ja, voorzitter, dank. Ik zou graag een vraag willen stellen aan de heer Sana. Die heel treffend zei dat je de zorg die nodig is niet met een pakketje van DHL of PostNL naar de regio kan verschepen. Kan hij de urgentie uitleggen om snel over te gaan tot het evacueren van kinderen die zorg nodig hebben en uitleggen waarom het nou zo onmogelijk is om op korte termijn die zorg in de regio te realiseren, dat dat niet kan. Dat je het dus hier moet opvangen omdat het niet kan.
De heer Sana.
Ja, en mijn gedeelte gaat over de kinderen met kanker met wie je contact hebt. En met kanker is heel belangrijk, zeker met kinderkankers, dat zij ook eigenlijk alle kankersoorten heel snel behandeld worden. En iedere dag, de vertraging kan iedere dag betekenen dat het gewoon heel erg is. En het kind, in het geval van het kindje Jude dat overleden is, het kind dat acuut is lymfatische leukemie voor de arts onder ons. En dan betekent dat je immuunsysteem faalt. En in het falen van het immuunsysteem, dan ben je gewoon eigenlijk een prooi voor alle rondvliegende bacteriën en virussen. En uiteindelijk is het kind ook daardoor binnen 3-4 weken overleden. Dus de urgentie is vrij groot. En je kan niet, als de capaciteit en de zorg, de regio, daar kan de WHO en andere collega's van Save the Children en ICRC het beter over zeggen. En ik denk dat een collega aan de linkerkant vanuit de UMC-NL, het kost generaties om een goed werkend zorgsysteem te bouwen, waar je kinderen de beste zorg kunnen krijgen. En dat heb je niet zomaar gedaan. Ook als je daar heel veel geld tegenaan zou gooien, anders zouden heel veel andere landen in de regio die heel rijk zijn, hadden ze ook de beste kankerzorgcentra in de wereld. Maar dat is niet zo. Maar het heeft wel met tradities te maken die wij hier met elkaar hebben. En dus daar zit hem. Dus ja, aan de ene kant heb je heel goed dat er geld beschikbaar is misschien voor de toekomst, maar dat zal wel kunnen helpen. Maar voor nu, op dit moment, er is een urgentie. En die urgentie is gewoon heel belangrijk om dat onder ogen te zien. En dat kan niet onze vergadering hier afwachten. Want de kanker gaat gewoon door. Dank u wel.
Dank u wel. Mevrouw Dobbe van de SP.
Dank u wel. Ik heb een vraag voor de heer Goudoever. Want het gaat inderdaad over urgentie. Hè? En wat gisteren niet leek te kunnen, kan misschien vandaag wel en morgen wel. Dus hoe zou dat eruit zien? Op het moment dat inderdaad dit kabinet het besluit lijkt te hebben genomen dat het wel kan, kunnen er dan morgen al kinderen komen? Hoe ziet dat eruit en hoeveel capaciteit is er dan?
Het zou er als volgt uit dienen te zien. Vanuit de overheid zou je dus de papierwerk in orde moeten maken om patiënten uit die gebieden naar Nederland te halen. Dat betekent dat daar de samenwerking voor is. Dan hebben we een netwerk, landelijk netwerk acute zorg, wat over alle ziekenhuizen in Nederland gaat, die dan vervolgens kijkt, deze patiënten zijn het best op een plek in dit en dit en dit ziekenhuis. Alle ziekenhuizen in Nederland hebben aangegeven dat ze klaarstaan om patiënten uit deze gebieden te kunnen behandelen. Dat geldt voor alle specialismen die er zijn, of dat nou oogartsen zijn, kinderartsen zijn, revalidatieartsen zijn, traumachirurgen zijn. Het maakt eigenlijk niet zoveel uit. Iedereen is daartoe bereid. Die kinderen worden dan, of patiënten worden dan naar Nederland gehaald en verdeeld over de verschillende plekken waar ze het beste behandeld kunnen worden. En dat gebeurt dan.
Dank u wel. Ik ga naar mevrouw Piri van GroenLinks Partij van de Arbeid.
Ja, dank u wel. En alvast hartelijk dank voor uw komst. En alvast excuus dat ik af en toe even eruit moet lopen, omdat ik ook nog naar een ander debat moet. Toch even op door te gaan op de vraag van mevrouw Dobbe. Waar hebben we het over qua capaciteit, wat gewoon realistisch is, hoeveel mensen we in Nederland zouden kunnen behandelen?
Aan wie stelt u de vraag?
Ja, dat dacht ik wel. Dat hangt natuurlijk af. Hè. Hoeveel patiënten kan je behandelen hangt af van hun behandelduur. Maar nogmaals, we hebben veel capaciteit in Nederland. Dus het gaat, en als je het zeker bedenkt over een bepaalde tijd. Als je kijkt naar, noem maar wat, de kinder-IC's. We hebben 7 kinder-IC's in Nederland. Als die, noem maar wat, 2 bedden beschikbaar stelt. De gemiddelde lichtduur op een kinder-IC is 5 dagen. Dat betekent dat je op dat moment, op moment A, eigenlijk 10 kinderen kan behandelen tegelijkertijd. Als die vervolgens van de IC afgaan naar een andere afdeling, heb je weer opnieuw die plekken die vrij zijn. En zo ga je dus heb je eigenlijk capaciteit voor tientallen kinderen in de komende weken. Echt tientallen.
Dank u wel. So as I said before, the Parliament is a little bit of a beehive today because there are many debates taking place simultaneously. So some MPs are walking out of this meeting and might come back later. Ms. Piri is one of them. She's going to a debate now, and Ms. Koekoek of the Volt Party also left the meeting, but will be back later during the hearing. Ik ga nu door met de heer Stoffer van de SGP.
Dank voorzitter en dank aan alle insprekers dat u hier bent om met ons ook informatie en kennis te delen. Misschien goed vooraf, voorzitter, de heer Sana sprak mij niet persoonlijk, maar wel als politieke partij aan. Misschien mag ik vooraf daar heel kort op reageren. Die last van kinderen drukt ons zwaar. En ik moet ook eerlijk zeggen dat ik heel blij ben met de wijziging die het kabinet, of in ieder geval de informatie die het kabinet vandaag naar ons toestuurt. En laat ik ook helder zijn, de koers die het kabinet nu aangeeft van laat enkele kinderen hier naartoe komen, die omarmen wij van harte. Dus dat is misschien goed om vooraf ook aan te geven. Dat kan de heer Sana ook meenemen naar zijn collega, die wellicht 29 oktober bij ons het vakje invult of niet, maar de informatie kan terug. Ik hoop dat dat ook een goede boodschap is om terug te brengen. Ik zal gelijk ook de vraag stellen, dat zal ik ook aan de heer Sana doen, voorzitter. Dat treft altijd. Als je een foto ziet van een kindje, en u heeft daar ook meer in NRC en dergelijke zaken over gedeeld. En ik vind altijd mooi dat iemand zich druk maakt om één mens. Want je kunt altijd denken, ik neem de hele wereld op mijn schouders. Maar je kunt ook het verschil maken naar één mens. Gelijk zit daar ook mijn vraag. Want u bent hier namens Artsen zonder Grenzen. Ik ben er benieuwd naar ook hoe we in de toekomst daarmee om kunnen gaan. Want het is natuurlijk een casus die we nu pakken rond Gaza. Maar Artsen zonder Grenzen is in 70 landen actief. En hoe speelt dat in algemene zin? Stel nu eens dat even Gaza wegdenken. Hoe in algemene zin gaan we om met kinderen die heel ziek zijn? En hoe pakt Artsen zonder Grenzen dat op? En zou daar ook meer in kunnen als Nederland? En dan wil ik niet de specifieke casus nu pakken, dat is helder. Maar hoe gaat het in de algemene zin? Zou je daar iets meer over kunnen zeggen? En als u het niet kunt, misschien een van de collega's.
Kijk ik naar de heer Sana. Tenzij u zegt, ik denk dat de heer Peperkorn het beter kan beantwoorden. Dat mag ook.
Ja. Dat stukje, ik denk de vraag is tweeledig. Dat ene stukje ga ik beantwoorden zeker. En dan een stukje over de toekomst. Dan laat ik aan meneer Peperkorn over, denk ik. Kijk, het is over mijn assistente gesproken. Zij is een fervente SGP-stemmer. Ik heb een hele goede gesprekken met haar. En ze gaat zeker ook stemmen. Maar het maakt haar alleen maar nog trotser op haar partij. Kijk, wat het belangrijk is, dat wij, zoals u het heel mooi zei, je kan als arts iemand meenemen. Je kunt iedereen op je schouder trekken, op je schouder meenemen. En dit is voor ons, denk ik, op het moment dat het voor mij of voor ons als artsen, op het moment dat wij als ook Nederlandse zorgsector gevraagd wordt vanuit de NGO's, vanuit de andere landen, of vanuit de WHO, van wij hebben hulp nodig. En dat stukje is waarbij je eigenlijk je zorg moet leveren. Wij hebben gezien ook dat als er andere oorlogen zijn, ook in de regio of buiten de regio, daar heeft Nederland al in een hele mooie staat van dienst. Dat zij heel veel kinderen hebben geholpen. Heel vaak wordt gezegd dat kinderen uit Oekraïne worden geholpen, maar kinderen uit andere landen niet. Ik zeg altijd, het is heel goed dat kinderen uit Oekraïne zijn geholpen. En het moet en zijn. Zijn ze uit Oekraïne, uit Rwanda, Gaza, uit Afghanistan, waar ze ook vandaan zijn. Kinderen, op het moment dat een beroep wordt gedaan op het Nederlandse zorgsysteem, op het moment dat een beroep wordt gedaan op mij, dan moeten wij die zorg kunnen leveren. Zeker. Het antwoord op die vraag kan heel duidelijk zijn.
Let me briefly look at Mr. Peperkorn. If there is something you want to add, feel free to do so.
Ja, ik kan het wel even Nederlands doen. Eerst was ook een vraag over hoe snel kan dat nou gaan met Medivacs. Ik denk dat het een Nederlands onderdeel van de EU. Ik denk dat het ook... Er is een EU, er zijn EU-regels hiervoor. En alle de EU-landen weten ook precies hoe ze dat doen. Dus wat papierwerk inderdaad, dat ze aangeven hoeveel patiënten, et cetera, willen dat uiteindelijk... Dat komt bij ons, dat is de WHO. En dan plannen we een medevac in overleg natuurlijk met de Israëlische autoriteiten en andere autoriteiten. We doen geen medevacs voor kleine groepjes. Ik had dat echt helemaal gezien. Eerst geen idee in wat voor omstandigheden we hier werken. Dus we proberen dat te doen voor groepen van 200. En dat gaat dan naar verschillende landen. Maar dat kan redelijk snel. En er kunnen natuurlijk ook vanuit de EU druk uitgevoerd worden op de Israëlische autoriteiten om vaker medevacs te organiseren. En te zorgen dat de WHO hier ook in ondersteund wordt. Dat opvang in de regio, natuurlijk zou dat heel goed en belangrijk zijn. Ik denk als u de getallen ziet, dat de regio al heel veel doet. En met name Egypte. En ik ben het eens met mijn artsencollega's dat in sommige gevallen heeft de Egyptische gezondheidszorg is simpel niet specifiek genoeg om sommige van die patiënten te behandelen. Dus daar moet je dus inderdaad ook dan kijken, oké, is dat beter ergens anders? En dat zou geholpen moeten worden. Ook het idee van hoe ga je dat nou verder mee om? De WHO werkt in 194 landen. En heel veel andere landen. Ik denk wel dat we kunnen stellen dat de Gaza-situatie... Ik heb in zuidelijk, oostelijk, centrale Afrika... Ik was hiervoor 7,5 jaar in Afghanistan. Dit is totaal anders. We praten over een bevolking van 2,2 miljoen mensen. En er zijn al meer dan 65.000 doden. En meer dan 165.000 gewonden. Ja, op zo'n bevolking. Die service, hoe ga je er dan verder mee om? Natuurlijk willen we in eerste instantie zorgen dat het Gaza-gezondheidssysteem niet helemaal in elkaar stort. En dat het zo goed mogelijk in stand blijft. En we hopen ook dat Nederland daar aan meedoet. Dat is natuurlijk 1. 2, maar voor groepen, en helaas grotere groepen patiënten, die kunnen niet die treatment krijgen in Gaza. En in het verleden, wat ik al zei, gingen ze ook naar de East Jerusalem Hospitals en naar de Westbank hospitals. Nou, voor specifieke gevallen zal die zorg ook niet beschikbaar zijn in East Jerusalem en de Westbank. En ik zou hopen dat daar, met name ook Europa en de very high income countries, etc., wat warmhartiger zouden zijn om te zeggen van oké, wij springen in dat gat. En wij gaan zorgen inderdaad dat we die zorg kunnen bieden. En niet alleen aan kinderen. Maar aan alle kritische patiënten die dat nodig hebben. En hoe gaan we daarom in andere landen? Dat doen we de same. We proberen die capaciteitsopbouw zo goed mogelijk te doen in de landen zelf. En kijken wat de meest kosteffectieve manier is om patiënten te behandelen. Over.
Dank u wel. Dan ga ik door en dan kijk ik allereerst naar de heer Van Kampen. Zodat de VVD-fractie, tenminste als hij als eerste een vraag gaat stellen namens de VVD.
Ja, ik heb een vraag aan de heer Peperkorn. Want een belangrijke reden voor de VVD om de beslissing die minister Van Wil nu neemt om kinderen in ons land noodzakelijke behandeling te geven, dat is dat het kabinet ook vanochtend schrijft dat het niet mogelijk blijkt om op korte termijn een significant verschil te maken of acute zorgen tekorten te lenigen wat betreft het complexe hoog specialistische medische zorg in de regio zelf. Maar ik zou meneer Van Peperkorn willen vragen, kunnen we dat met evacuaties wel bewerkstelligen? Want ik meende u net nee te zien knikken of schudden, hoe noem je dat, in een eerdere vraaggesprek. Hoe ziet dat er wat u betreft uit? En als het kabinet dit besluit nu inderdaad neemt, hoe snel kunnen kinderen dan hier die acute zorg verkrijgen?
De heer Peperkorn.
Nou, mijn nee-schudden was meer naar dat als er vandaag besloten wordt, Nederland gaat 3 kinderen evacueren, dat het morgen geregeld wordt. Dat was eigenlijk mijn nee-schudden. Het kan redelijk snel, want die papieren, dat andere landen, Europese landen, doen dat dus ook. En in Europees verband is dat dus ook geregeld met de WHO. Dus dat kan redelijk snel. Dan hangt het natuurlijk vanaf wanneer die medische evacuatie kan plaatsvinden. Overleg met de Israëlische autoriteiten. En ja, wat ik al zei, de WHO, wij willen juist uitbreiden. We willen niet meer 1 medevac per week, want dan zijn we nog 10 jaar bezig. We willen dus meerdere medevacs per maand. We zijn ook aan het investeren bijvoorbeeld in het ziekenhuis van het Palestijnse Red Crescent. Om dat uit te breiden, zodat we grotere groepen patiënten geëvacueerd kunnen worden van daaruit. En u zegt die opvang in de regio. Ik denk dat we moeten echt kijken naar een combinatie. En allereerst, en dat is goed dat bijvoorbeeld Denemarken heeft het opgepikt. Maar ook in de General Assembly zag ik dat Nederland daaraan meedeed. Nederland de Canada, Australië, een hele groep Europese landen, dat er niet meer soft diplomacy is, maar dat er nou actief gelobbyd wordt met Israëlische autoriteiten om die traditional referral pathway naar Oost-Jeruzalem en de Westbank open te stellen. Dat zou zeker gaan over grotere aantallen. Dan heb je nog steeds specifieke patiënten die niet nu meer behandeld kunnen worden in Gaza, absoluut niet in Gaza, maar ook niet in de Westbank en Oost-Jeruzalem. Dus ik denk dat we moeten gaan naar een combinatie van groepen naar Oost-Jeruzalem en naar de Westbank, et cetera. Ook in de regio, maar ook landen in Europa kunnen daar zeker een belangrijk steentje bijdragen.
Dank u wel. Ik kijk of mevrouw Hirsch nog een vraag stellen, dat mag. Ja.
Ik weet niet, voorzitter, u wilde geen vraag stellen? Nee? Oké, dan heb ik een vraag aan professor Goudhoever, als het mag. Ik lees in de kranten, in sommige kranten, dat behandelingen van kinderen uit Gaza zou concurreren met capaciteit voor kinderen in Nederland. Zou u daar wat over kunnen zeggen?
Professor.
Ja, dank u wel voor die vraag. Ik las dat ook en ik dacht, wie heeft dat toch geventileerd? Want natuurlijk is er een bepaalde capaciteit in ons land. Die is overigens ten opzichte van bijvoorbeeld Egypte 3 keer zoveel per inwoner als in Egypte. Nog los van alle evacuees die kant op gaan. En ik spreek dus namens alle UMC's van Nederland en die verzekeren mij dat er voldoende capaciteit is om tientallen kinderen op te nemen.
Dank u wel. De heer Van den Burg, ook van de VVD.
Ja, blij met niet alleen de vraag van mevrouw Hiers, maar ook met het antwoord. Want we zien niet alleen in de media, maar ook op de socials zien wij verschrikkelijke teksten verschijnen. Dus het is goed als onzin meteen de wereld wordt uitgeholpen. Een vraag aan de heer Peperkorn die aansluit op de vraag die eerder ook hier werd gesteld over wat er in Nederland moet gebeuren ten behoeve van evacuaties. Wat moet er bij, nou ik zeg even bij u, maar niet specifiek bij dan de World Health Organization, maar wat moet er daar gebeuren om ervoor te zorgen dat de kinderen hier naartoe kunnen komen?
Meneer Peperkorn.
Ja, nou, eerste plaats natuurlijk staakt het vuren, zodat er wat minder evacuaties, met name trauma, als gevolg van trauma, nodig zijn. Dus dat is echt absoluut het allerbelangrijkste. Iedereen is zo moe over de laatste 2 jaar. Het is echt beyond belief. So dat is de belangrijkste. En alles wat daar kan bijdragen is het waarschijnlijk het belangrijkste. Het tweede is denk ik wel dat we weten dat we ook, stel die oorlog stopt morgen, stopt morgen en dat plan gaat in, et cetera. Dan blijven we nog jaren in een humanitaire situatie zitten in Gaza. En Gaza voor deze crisis had een redelijk gezondheidszorgsysteem. Niet fantastisch, met name niet voor sommige specifieke redenen, maar redelijk. Dat is inderdaad on the brink of collapse. Dat is minimaal partieel functioneren met alle steun die wij daaraan verlenen. Dus als je me vraagt wat is nou belangrijk, dat moeten we in eerste instantie in stand houden en uitbreiden. Zodat er weer meer ook specifieke specialistische zorg mogelijk is binnen Gaza. Dat is 1. 2, dat zal niet helpen voor die 15.600 patiënten die nou op die priority lijst staan. Dus wat Nederland kan doen, met andere Europese landen, zoals het vooral ook in EU-verband doet, is dat lobbyen met de Israëlische autoriteiten om dat traditional, die die medical naar Oost-Jeruzalem en de Westbank, om dat weer open te stellen. Dat zou een kleine gamechanger zijn, dat is absoluut belangrijk. En inderdaad, ik denk toch wel dat we open moeten staan, ook in Europa, en dat hebben we ook met Oekraïne bewezen en gedaan. Dat we openstaan voor kritische patiënten die niet goed in de regio. En ik ben het eens met iemand anders die zei van wat Egypte al gedaan heeft, meer dan 4000 patiënten in een veel beperkter gezondheidszorgsysteem met alle andere evacuees daar. En zei, we moeten dus uiteindelijk ook Egypte daarin ondersteunen. Maar ook als de Westbank en Oost-Jeruzalem gaat, die ondersteunen. Er zal altijd voor, ik vrees, nog een aantal duizenden patiënten de noodzaak zijn dat ze naar landen gaan met een hogere, met een betere specialisatie, gespecialiseerde zorg. En ook voor Medevac, ik wilde toch even... het zijn zeer kostbare operaties. Dus wij willen uitbreiden. We hebben plannen al uitbreiden. Dus 2 dingen. Ook daar de Israëlische autoriteiten onder druk zetten dat er meer medevac-operaties gedaan kunnen worden. 2, wij hebben wel flexibel geld daarvoor nodig om die uitbreiding ook, dat het ook echt gebeurt. Over.
Dank u wel. Daarmee zijn we aan het eind van de eerste ronde gekomen. En om voldoende tijd te hebben in de tweede ronde voor de experts, dat zijn er nog iets meer, denk ik dat we deze ronde hierbij gaan afronden. Ik wil de heer Peperkorn, de heer Sana en professor van Goudoever van harte danken voor hun heldere bijdrage aan deze eerste ronde. We're now going to switch over to English, but we're also going to switch chairs because I will have to walk out of this meeting for a debate taking place simultaneously in the plenary hall. And I've invited Mr. Van den Burg to take my chair, and I will take his chair so that I can still participate in the meeting. Hier voldoen? Ja.
And we'll have a pause of 2 minutes for the organizations. Then we will start with a second part of the program, and we'll do it in English because we have a lot of guests for whom English is more accurate to talk to. We have Dr. Hani Islim, Medical Evacuation Project Coordinator for Gaza. We have Nadia Mohammed, Director of Programs of Save the Children in Egypt. The third one is Dr. Mohammed Barkat, Consultant Orthopedic Surgeon and Medical Director of the Seha Agat Hospital in Cairo, also of Save the Children. We have Pim Kraan, CEO of Save the Children in the Netherlands. And last but not least, Dirk Segaar, Head of International Help of the Dutch Red Cross. Let's start with Dr. Hani Islim. We give the floor to you, and after all the specialists have spoken, then there can be some questions from the committee. Dr. Hani Islim, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for giving me the opportunity to address to you today on an issue that is not only urgent, but truly a matter of life and death for thousands, the medical evacuation of patients from Gaza. I apologize for departing from my prepared speech, but I must begin with today's reality. This morning, Israeli forces bombed a bus waiting assembly point for MSF staff. It is a location that was well known and coordinated in advance. Today, we lost one member of staff of MSF staff and 5 was severely injured during this bombing. With what little remains of Gaza health system, this injured colleague will likely not survive, and even in the best scenario, they will face lifelong disability. This is because only basic damage control care is possible today in Gaza. There is no specialized surgery, no advanced treatment left. This is the daily reality of medical staff and for thousands of patients in Gaza. Medicine Sans Frontiers has been involved in medical evacuation for more than 20 years, including in the Middle East through our hospital in Amman. In most cases, it is the best scenario or the best interest of the patients to be treated and close to home as possible. In the case of Gaza, however, is no longer always possible. Please let me describe the situation that MSF observed daily through the regional medical evacuation project for Gaza. The health infrastructure, I will not repeat what our colleague from WHO talked about, the complete collapse of the health system. But over the past year, neighboring country has taken on 97% of all medical evacuation. However, this willingness is unevenly distributed. Countries such as Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Jordan have made significant contribution, while, for example, Saudi Arabia has not. Moreover, since August 2024, Qatar has stopped receiving patients. The limitation in the region vary in nature. In some cases, political will has not materialized, for example, Saudi Arabia. In other cases, infrastructure and medical human resources have been stretched to a point where evacuation was halted, like Qatar, or efforts have shifted toward providing less complex care for practical and cost-related reasons, like in Jordan, and relying on organization or international organization to treat patients and trying to create a space and turnover of the patient by sending them back to Gaza. In yet other cases, such as Egypt, evacuation depends on crossing border, which is closed since May 2024 and only opened during the ceasefire from January to March 2025. But patients faces numerous difficulties because actual treatment is in a large majority of the cases not being provided. The Emirates has their part, have set a target of treating 3,000 patients and seem to be on track to achieve this. Even if these limitations were resolved today, the available capacity would still not be enough to treat the most critical patients. That is why we urgently need countries such as Netherlands to step forward. This shortage of evacuation destination in the region led the WHO to sound the alarm on August 7th. The number of hospital beds available in the Middle East and Gulf region is vastly insufficient to provide the necessary, often life-saving care for patients on the waiting list. Between summer 2024 and summer 2025, 740 patients died, including 139, have already died while waiting for medical evacuation. This is undoubtedly a significant underestimated. As the situation in Gaza continues to deteriorate, the waiting list will grow and the risk of losing more patients will increase. There is therefore an urgent need to remove this bottleneck. As Medicine Sans Frontiers, we are losing patients right now, and this is very moment. Medicine Sans Frontiers called the Dutch government to pursue a combined approach of strengthening the capacity in the regions, offering diplomatic encouragement and enabling medical evacuation to Netherlands for complex cases. In this way, Dutch government or Dutch engagement can be most effective in saving lives directly. Allow me to emphasize several key principles. Medical evacuation cannot be symbolic or one-off. It must be coordinated, sustained, and expanded. Evacuation decision must be based solely on medical urgency, non-political consideration. Adult as well, children must be included, and stop dealing with the patients as a shopping list. Patient must be accompanied by family member or caregiver. No patients or relative should ever be forcibly returned to Gaza or to any unsafe place. All states have a role to play in removing bureaucratic and political barriers that delay life-saving evacuation. While evacuation saves lives, it cannot substitute for restoring Gaza health system. Attacks on healthcare infrastructure must stop, and long-term investment in hospital staff and essential supply must resume. At the end, it's important to say this is not the crisis that we can be solved with a short-term intervention or shaped by domestic political conventions. It is a test of our shared humanity. The people of Gaza are not asking for charity. They are asking to their right to life and health to be upheld. Your leadership, your decisions, and your solidarity can make difference between the life and death of thousands. Lives quite literally depend on you. I heard today, just in early morning, that the Dutch government announced it will to allow a small amount of children to be medevac to Netherlands. MSF is really very happy with this step, and we stand by for any support needed. This is not only fantastic for the children, but also has an important symbolic value. Thank you.
Thank you. And later on, the members of the committee can ask questions. But now we go to Nadia Mohammed, Director of Program Save the Children in Egypt. Welcome, Mrs. Mohammed. We don't
Hi,
hear...
everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to have me here, and nice to meet you all. I will give you a quick overview of the situation of the Palestinians from Gaza here in Egypt. I was told that I only have 5 minutes, so I will try to make it as brief as possible. In Egypt, we have 130,000 Palestinians from Gaza, of which there are around 30,000 children. They fled to Egypt from Gaza between October 2023 and May 2024 for those who are non-medical evacuees. However, medical evacuees started coming since 2023 and they continued till this year. Not to forget that in Egypt, we have 1.5 million Sudanese, we have Syrians, and we have other refugees and migrants as well. Palestinians in Egypt, they are very traumatized. And the trauma did not stop just because they are here in Egypt. They continue to follow up on the news. They continue to follow up with their family members, their loved ones in Gaza, and following up through the social media and different groups to check on the situation, their houses, their neighbors, and their family members. Plus, here in Egypt, they have no legal stay, so they are not entitled for their basic services, for the basic needs in terms of work, health services, or education for the children. Majority came with very limited resources. Some were depending on family members across the world, in the Gulf and in the West. But they did that for a few months, but they cannot continue as this has continued for a very long time. Among the 130,000, we have more than 7,000 medical evacuees here in Egypt. And not to forget the companions who also came to Egypt with them. They came with no resources at all. In 2023 and 2024, Ministry of Health in Egypt, they have put all medical evacuees, including their companions, inside the hospitals across all of Egypt, which meant for many months, for some of them for more than a year and a half, they have occupied hospital beds and hospital rooms for very, very long time. Those have been later been transferred to collective shelters. But this year, the medical evacuees who arrived this year, they were immediately put in collective shelters, except of the very, very critical cases, they were put in hospitals. Egypt, with Ministry of Health, through the public hospitals, have tried and put all the effort that they can to support as many Palestinians from Egypt that they can. However, the situation is very critical. Many of those Palestinians, both children and adults, they come with complex injuries, as Dr. Richard also mentioned, cancer, oncology, other diseases as well. So they are not in need. It's not that they enter the hospital, receive the service, and they leave the hospital. They are in need of many multiple medical interventions and treatments, not to mention the companions who are with them, children who are in need of vaccines, companions who are also suffering from other diseases, and so on. The pressure on the public hospitals is huge, and Egypt has done what they can. We, as Save the Children here in Egypt, and now newly with the support of Netherlands, we are able to support as many as we can through the private hospitals as well. However, there are cases that cannot be supported here in Egypt, and Dr. Barakat in a bit, he will be explaining a little bit more about it. So we as Save the Children, we ask you to take on this responsibility and help us through this mission to ensure that those who cannot be supported here in Egypt, that they are being transferred to the Netherlands to be supported there. Imagine you are extremely powerful for Palestinians from Gaza, because for them, you can decide whether they live or they die. Imagine that power you are holding. Many Palestinians have already died here in Egypt because the waiting list back in Gaza, they have waited for very, very long time. Many continue to die here. So we ask you to save their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will continue with a colleague of yours, Dr. Mohamed Barkat, consultant orthopedic surgeon and medical director of the Sia Akabat Hospital in Cairo. Welcome, Mr. Barkat.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. I just want to continue from my colleague, Dr. Nadia. I want to give from the start from the professor of MSF, our Palestinian doctor. He said that there is no medical service in Palestine, and that's known. All the hospitals are bombed. So the result that all the patients that we can pass them through the border will be transferred to the neighborhood countries. That was the first step since 2023 when the border opened, 2024, 2025 immediately. They'll be close with their families. I'm going to speak about our healthcare system, the strain, the condition we are in, the condition that will happen once ceasefire happen, as this is the most critical point. There will be a lot of complex cases, a lot of cases other than my dear colleague Dr. Nadia said about the oncological patients who need prolonged stay, who need specific service. If we are going to speak about complex injuries, I guess that we don't know anything about it at the moment. No journalist coverage there in Gaza or, to know what happens. But once the ceasefire happens, there will be a flood of cases. If we can save some of them, that would be great. That would be humane. I guess none of us came here to beg for something for himself. We are looking for humanity support from Arabs, from Europeans, from everyone who can save the children, give them a chance in life. If I'm gonna speak specifically, I have 3 or 4 specific patients in my mind. A kid with a complex deformity since birth is having a problem in dealing in his life. It was before the war or the genocide. However, we're gonna say it. Another patient who was in a video for me, a cardiac patient who needs specific intervention. Here in Egypt, we have one of the major cardiac surgeons in the world, Sir Magdi Aoub. I guess you all know. But we have a very long line because we treat Egyptians, we treat Sudanese, we treat all the refugees around, the Syrians. Everyone here is coming to Egypt, and any country who have a problem can come, I assure it. But finally, we are now in a condition which will be very, very critical in the upcoming days. If a ceasefire happens, there will be a flood. This flood must be supported by all countries, Arabian, European, any country, even Latinese. Anyone who can take a kid with his family and provide, they have no shelter, they have no home, they have no money, they have nothing. They cannot afford anything. They need, some of them need urgent care, some of them need continuous care. That's the main issue. The urgent care for the highly injured patients from this genocide, the continuous care for oncological patients, for patients with transplant, anyone who needs a kidney transplant, muscle transplant, any organ to be transferred. That's a very critical point to primarily be supported. We can put the second category for a patient with an injury that has been controlled by the healthcare system, which is, I guess, nearly destroyed in Gaza and Palestine all over, but they can take their chance later on. Nowadays, in Egypt, we are already strained by our people, by our other neighbors, by our neighbors from Palestine, from Gaza, who came already. The next step we can support. We and our government will never stop supporting them. They are our family. But what we hope for is that other countries take their share, take their humanity share, not their share for paying money. It's not just about money. It's about being human. That's what I gonna say. That's all of it. I guess I spoke several times about it. All of us spoke. Everyone knows what happens already there in Gaza. Everyone who wanna know what happens, he can know. Don't just follow a specific direction. Look for a journalist who can bring the real truth, and you're gonna know what already happens. No healthcare system. The neighbors are already flooded. Either Egypt, Qatar, UAE. All of us are trying to do the support as much as we can. But if you take your humane role, I guess that would be effective, and that would be very helpful for these specifically and highly critical patients. And it will give us a chance to serve the others and give us the chance to relieve the strain from the healthcare systems all over the Middle East. Jordan even also is trying to help. Everyone is trying to help. So all I want to ask you is to take your share of humanity. And that's it. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Then we continue with Mr. Pin Graan, CEO of Save the Children.
Thank you, Chairman. Lots have been said already. Let me start with condolences to the colleagues of MSF that lost a colleague today. It's a grave violation of the Geneva Conventions. We'll certainly come back to that in another stage. Save the Children is the second largest NGO in the world. We have 20,000 people in 110 countries. And we are also present in Egypt, as you have heard from the doctor. And we have our emergency health unit deployed in the front lines of Gaza. I will cut my intervention short because lots have been addressed already. Save the Children, in cooperation with Médecins Sans Frontières, calls on the Dutch government to pursue a combined strategy of capacity strengthening in the region, diplomatic encouragement and treatment in the Netherlands. In this way, Dutch engagement will be most effective in the short term in saving lives directly and most sustainable in accommodating patients outside Gaza for the longer term. We urgently ask the Netherlands to make the following contributions. The planned support for healthcare in the region that via the task force of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs is being planned is meaningful and important. We are grateful for the partnership. There are capacity constraints, as you heard from the doctor, and with expertise, personnel, material and financial resources, the Netherlands can in time make a good contribution to increase the number of places available in neighboring countries. That's valuable. And it will still take many years before, after a ceasefire, healthcare in Gaza is going to function well again. However, based on decades of experience in establishing and supporting medical infrastructure, We confirm that it will take enormous amounts of time, effort and resources to achieve this. Care capacity for complex conditions cannot simply be put on a plane. It requires long-term recruitment and training of doctors and nurses, availability of related disciplines like prosthetics, physiotherapy, etc., IT infrastructure, constructions, etc., and so forth and so forth. In other words, transplanting an ecosystem for complex care from the Netherlands to the region is costly, time-consuming, and therefore inefficient and certainly not effective enough for those people on the waiting list now. Diplomatic efforts to encourage countries in the region to do more will undoubtedly meet with resistance as long as the Netherlands itself does not accept patients. The Netherlands could strongly advocate, for example, the principle of non-refoulement of the neighboring countries and not send back patients that are being sent to those neighboring countries. Or a contribution from the Israeli healthcare system. Evacuations to hospitals in the West Bank will have an historical precedent and are particularly important for acute and unstable patients that cannot be long-distance medically evacuated. It's in the interest of the vast majority of patients that the center of gravity of care remains within the region. Nevertheless, given the acute shortage of evacuation places, a contribution through providing healthcare in the Netherlands is essential. It will take time to see results from capacity strengthening, and meanwhile, patients are dying on the waiting list every day. This means that for patients who now need acute care and for whom no beds will be available in the coming days and weeks, the planned strategic capacity in the region will come too late. Therefore, a contribution by the Netherlands could provide further impetus to other European countries that have not yet offered care. Finally, it would significantly strengthen the credibility and effectiveness of our diplomatic efforts aimed at securing greater contributions from countries in the region. And mind you, Egypt takes almost 55% of the referral cases already and is on the brink of its own collapse. Given the combination of ongoing violence, attacks on medical facilities, as we have just heard, the total destruction of the healthcare system in Gaza, the need for medical care will always exceed the available resources. The Netherlands should therefore base its approach on its own available capacity. We've just heard from the professor what it looks like. Specialists from the university medical centers, children's hospitals and the National Acute Care Network suggest that several tranches of 30 evacuees could easily be received. It would not come at the expense of Dutch patients. Lastly, the Dutch government has both a moral and a legal duty to help evacuate sick and wounded children from Gaza. In Article 38 from the Convention of the Rights of the Child, of which Save the Children is the custodian, it clearly states that children are entitled to access to healthcare protection during war, and that states that the responsibility for the rehabilitation and integration of children lays with other states. There is also the link laid with the Geneva Convention, which are inseverable tied together. If a state is unable to do so, other states should jump in its states. A matter of international solidarity. The Geneva Conventions also clearly state wounded and ill civilians, specifically children, have a right to health care and, if needed, medical evacuation. The Netherlands has a moral but also a legal obligation to protect the health, safety and dignity of ill and wounded children from conflict zones. Evacuating these children is therefore a gesture of goodwill and a binding obligation. And Mr. Chairman, may I flag this? The Dutch people would like to see some compassion. I'm going to head this demonstration on Sunday in Amsterdam. People want to see that the state of the Netherlands lives up to international humanitarian law, particularly from the city of peace and justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you for now. And last but not least, Dirk Segaar, Head International Help of the Dutch Red Cross.
Yes, thank you, Excellency, for this opportunity to address you today. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. Too many civilians, women and children are dying in Gaza, despite the obligations under international humanitarian law, where the Red Cross is the guardian of the Geneva Conventions, where civilians cannot be targeted, should be protected during conflict. Humanitarian access should be unimpeded at all times to reach those most in need. and humanitarian workers and infrastructure facilities should be protected at all times. But what we do see is that there is a structural demolition of the medical infrastructure in Gaza right now. As a Red Cross, since the escalation of the conflict, we have been supporting the Palestinian Red Crescent in Gaza with their operations, as well as the International Red Cross, the ICRC, who has a field hospital in Gaza with experienced trauma surgeons who are operating people with severe trauma at an overcapacity. They have 60 beds. They've just doubled the capacity, but still it's not enough on a daily basis, with hugely wounded, often women, children, civilians that come in on a daily basis, hundreds at a time. The PRCS, the Palestinian Red Crescent, is one of the biggest provider of health and social services, both in Gaza itself as in the West Bank. And in addition, they also support Palestinians in Lebanon, Syria, Egypt, and Iraq, with over 4,000 employees and more than 10,000 volunteers.
Okay, yeah.
That gives us, with the International Red Cross there, by supporting this very strong local medical organization, part of the movement of the Red Cross, by supporting the International Red Cross with their specialized medical support in conflict, and by supporting other Red Cross and Red Crescent societies in the region, in particular the Egyptian Red Crescent and the Jordanian Red Crescent, we have a very good understanding of the impact, obviously, in Gaza itself, as well as in the region. And to give you an idea of the capacity that we employ right now, but under extreme strain and with a huge loss of our colleagues since the start of the conflict. Still, the Palestinian Red Crescent is able to operate about half its ambulances, just over 20 now in Gaza, instead of its 60 that we started with. Still 13 out of 29 clinics try to continue. 2 hospitals are still continuing, and 2 field hospitals in addition to that, still continuing, but with huge shortages and huge constraints on their operations and at huge personal risk. At the same time, PRCS is also on the West Bank, and it was mentioned by some other speakers, and that is also our first request to you, is they have huge capacity in the West Bank. They have 4 hospitals, 3 mobile clinics, 75 ambulances, 17 medical posts. There's a lot of capacity in East Jerusalem and the West Bank to support people, but this part of medical evacuations has not been allowed so far. So one question is to use your influence to facilitate access to, in particular, the West Bank and all the medical facilities there. What we see in addition, that the Palestinian Red Crescent has a hospital in Cairo that has been treating almost 400 evacuees, medical evacuees in 2004, and similar number now, as well as something like 15,000 outpatients services that needs to continue, but they are under an incredible amount of pressure. The Jordanian Red Crescent also has an important role in facilitating medical evacuations, and also has its own hospital in Jordan with capacity to receive patients. But, and that's my second point, the strengthening of the regional capacity is an absolute necessity. And many speakers already mentioned it, on that a lot of the medical facilities in surrounding countries are under strain. And also there is a lack for specialized treatment of different kinds. What we see is that they now are under strain, and what we fear is that if a ceasefire were to occur, that you will really see a flood of medical evacuations that will stretch the available medical capacity to its absolute limits. If you just look at the year so far, during the period of 18 March until 17th of September, according to WHO, we saw 641 medical evacuations, which is about 100 per month. But if you look at the January to February 2025, there was a ceasefire, and during just those 6 weeks, there were 1,700 medical evacuees. And so that gives you already, and the situation has only dramatically deteriorated in Gaza since. So you can expect a huge influx of additional patients. So the system is now under strain. It will be much more under strain as soon as a ceasefire comes into place. And then, because of the complexity of so many of the medical cases, this is also not something that it will just be a surge and then it will be over. This will require long-term support in the region. So your support in terms of financing as well as providing additional specialized support in the region is hugely important. The last point is, obviously, we also have an obligation as the Netherlands, both as a country here, as well as part of the EU, to facilitate for those patients who really need specialized treatment, to give them an opportunity to save their lives. Obviously, this support is not going to address the full scale of the problem of over 15,000 people who are on the waiting list, but every single child or every single person and life saved is a huge impact, and we should do everything we can to address it. Obviously, that in itself would not be enough, so hence the request to push on the humanitarian diplomacy side to allow medical evacuations to the regions, to the West Bank, everywhere where we can go, to strengthen the capacity in the surrounding countries and allow for the most complex cases the capacity that we have. I feel this is a very much a moral responsibility of all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we go to the questions of the members of the committee. Please mention to whom you asked the question, and I will start with Mr. Jan Paternotte because he has to leave. So, Mr. Jan Paternotte.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'd like to join Pim Kraan in conveying condolences to Doctors Without Borders on the loss of their colleague. My question relates to a debate that we had on Monday with the Dutch Minister of Foreign Affairs, because he said that a major obstacle to evacuating children from Egypt is that one of their parents would have to accompany them when they come to the Netherlands, and that Israel needs to give permission for one of the parents to leave the Gaza Strip, and that otherwise a kid that's brought here risks being uprooted and being separated from their family. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, and I'd also like to know a little bit more, if that's possible, about how other countries like Italy and France go about the issue of making sure that one of the parents can accompany the children. And I think maybe Nadia Mohammed, Director of Programs in Egypt, would be the best one to ask this question.
Mrs. Mohammed, would you be so kind to answer the question? Mrs. Mohammed, do you hear? Okay. Yes.
I can tell you based on the experience that we have, because the medical evacuees who we have here in Egypt went through that process where for some it's the mother with the children, where either the father was died or disappeared, or he is not found, or was not allowed actually to cross from Gaza to Egypt. So it's an exact same situation. But I would say, of course, separation is not the best. I mean, from children's for the children's well-being and best of interest. but we are talking about a matter of life or death. It has been different from between the different countries like Italy and France and some of other countries, where some they allowed the families, I mean, for those who were evacuated from Egypt, not directly from Gaza. So they accepted, for some, they accepted to have the family who are here in Egypt to be evacuated with the child. For some others, they requested that it's one family, one adult family member to join them. But we are in the exact same situation here in Egypt, because those children, they were separated from other family members, but and of course, I mean, we are having talks and discussions with those families who follow up on their other children who are in Gaza, who are hungry. So it's a process that we need to discuss together. Of course, there are family members who need to join the child to the Netherlands. We cannot isolate the child from their caregivers. And we can take that discussion. Maybe Richard, he can support because he has been involved in the process concerning that decision already when families were transferred from Gaza already.
Thank you so much. Please, can you... Yeah, okay. Then we continue with Mrs. Teunissen.
Thank you so much, Chair. First, I would like to pay my respects to Doctors Without Borders as well for losing their colleague. My condolences. And my question is to Dr. Barakat. Our Dutch government says often it's too complicated and that it would harm the children too much to transfer them to European countries, and that it's therefore better to help them in the region. What do you say to this argument that the Dutch government puts on the table?
Just let me clarify the point. I don't understand what would be the harm for a person to go for a place which can provide a good healthcare system, which can provide an active limb instead of the one he lost. What would be the defect if the patient receives the chemotherapy or the radiotherapy he needs for his cancer? I don't understand that it might be a defect if he goes there and do the cardiac operation that he was not able to do. I guess he would be thankful to the country who provided this, would be thankful for the people who supported him to have a better life. No, I cannot say it's a better life. I can say just to have his life. So I guess this quote is not good.
Thank you so much. And we will continue with Mr. Van Baarle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and also I would like to extend my condolences with regard to the loss of a colleague by the medical staff. I would like to ask Mr. Pim Kraan a question, because we have all read the letter of the Dutch government in which they state that the amount of children that can be helped in the Netherlands is a few and very limited. And we heard you, Mr. Kraan, state that we could organize several tranches of 30 evacuees. And we also heard another contribution in which was stated that we can arrange in a few weeks dozens of children to be helped here in the Netherlands. So from your expertise and your contacts with medical personnel here in the Netherlands, could you please, from your expertise, contrast the statement that we can only help a few children in the Netherlands and confirm that we can help dozens of children within several weeks?
Thank you. Very important question. I think what we learned from this expert briefing is that the opposite is the truth. We stand ready, both Médecins Sans Frontières and us, and I think also the Red Cross, to assist in the evacuation of those children. We are talking with Professor Goudhoever together, Médecins Sans Frontières and Save the Children, to see how we can partner up to build that supply line and make sure that those evacuations from the source, where our people are, in the healthcare centers in Gaza, to the neighboring countries and on to the Netherlands can be accomplished. There is capacity enough. It's political will that's lacking. And what we would like to see is that the compassion that the Dutch population wants the government to show that this is being done, because the very moment that a ceasefire deal is a fact, we will be flooded with cases that we need to accommodate. They cannot be accommodated in Egypt. We know that there is an overburdening of the health system. We cannot quickly put up the systems that can cater for that. But I'm looking here at a chart, and I see here, when I calculate roughly, that 85% of the evacuees that are now being hosted are hosted in Egypt, in the United Arab Emirates, in Qatar, in Algeria and in Jordan and Turkey. And out of the 100% of the pie chart, less than 4% is Europe. And then we talk about 3 children. Let me end there.
Mrs. Dobbe?
Thank you, and thank you for your very clear answer on that, because obviously that's also a question that we have. What is the capacity? If you say the approach should be that we should base our approach on our own capacity here. I have a question about how fast we can organize this as a country. Before we heard in an earlier question that there needs to be some paperwork done, but it can be arranged on the short term. Can you maybe explain a little bit more about that? What is the short term? Can we already have children here, for example, tomorrow? Or does it take a few days, or does it take weeks? How does that work? How fast can we go?
Mr. Kraan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, it's not done in 24 hours, but there is practice going. We know that how the system works. We need to solve the paperwork. We need to make sure that medical evacuation planes are available. But we know that the hospitals are ready to receive. You heard the professor. Every medical professional in the Netherlands wants to deliver that care to children. We have the space, we have the capacity, we have the will. We have partners in theater to facilitate that. We are a very important player and a very good partner of the Egyptian government in any sense thinkable. So we can be a facilitator there. And I would say it could be done in a number of days, maybe in a week's time. That has to be explored. But so far, we could not do a very clear assessment of that, because we never got the green light that the paperwork will be done first. Thank you.
Mr. Stoffer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I would address my question to Dr. Hani Esleen. I've heard, my information is that a large country like Saudi Arabia is currently not accepting any patients at all. And my question is that true? And if it's true, what's the reason? And how could we set pressure from the Netherlands to Saudi Arabia to do this also, and to start also accepting patients from Gaza?
Dr. Hana Islim?
Yes, my dear. Okay, got your question. So if I will answer regarding what happened with the Saudi Arabia. So it was 2 rounds of discussion. 2024, during the mid of 2024, it was a discussion, and they were willing to take cases from inside Egypt after the closure of Rafah border. And then we were really in collaboration with different NGOs acting in Egypt, and we selected a long list of patients, and it was a 2 months of exchange between us and them. They were putting a condition to have a passport, and we facilitate to issue the passport for that from the Palestinian embassy inside Egypt. And just after 2 months of efforts, knowing that also I have a lot of those patients who died either during this waiting period or after they apologized, because they said, no, we want higher than that. The cases that you send was so complex. Then we went to another round through our humanitarian representative. They visit the authorities in February 2025. The news that we got was they are willing to take 1,500 patients, but waiting for the political decision, which unfortunately didn't take place since February until now.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, for the first round, Mrs. Hirsch.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you very much to all of you, honestly. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. I know you are seriously stressed, and your colleagues, not only of Médecins Sans Frontières, but all the organizations that are here have been suffering immensely to do the right thing. So thanks for that. And I hope that you also feel that if on Sunday more than 100,000 people will be on the streets in the Netherlands, that's also in support of all and respect for the work that you will be doing. So I wanted to say that to all of you, because I hear you and it's must be very heavy. So I just want to confirm, we have this debate since the beginning of August in the Netherlands. And I have had questions about, especially since the government has taken the decision to invest 25 million in the region, why it's still necessary to have medical evacuations. And I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. We have infrastructure that is destroyed. We have a huge number of people that cannot leave the area because of the border crosses being closed. We have overburdening the capacity of the region already. And for the people that we are talking about here today, the urgent medical evacuation, there is no other option than going to another country to be treated on time. There is no other option. I just want to make sure that we're clear that there's no alternative. And I don't know who wants to answer this, but yeah, just...
Someone of Save the Children, maybe?
Maybe.
Yes, oh, that's also, of course.
You are absolutely right. And I mean, if I was facing the person from the government saying that it's so easy, just treat them where they are, I mean, how can they, on one hand, find it so easy to treat 8,000 medical evacuees in a country like Egypt, but at the same time, extremely difficult to treat few patients in the Netherlands? We are not saying that we want the majority to go to the Netherlands, not at all. We have capacities in Egypt, but it's overburdened. I mean, we have the Sudanese as well, and we have the Egyptians, and we have the Syrians, and we have many who are already overstretching the hospitals and the medical resources here. Of course, we can all contribute so we can support the hospitals, but there are patients who cannot be supported even if you send all the resources to Egypt, because these are very specific cases that requires a very high advanced surgeries, technology, and so on. So these are the few percentage that we are talking about in terms of transfer to the Netherlands. While for the majority, I would say Netherlands and the international community, they have a responsibility as well to support Egypt in supporting the medical evacuees and the non-medical evacuees as well, and the companions of the medical evacuees. They have been here for so long. People are dying. I mean, people are dying. And there is nothing worse than people are dying because of a basic service that they can easily be received. But for very complex cases, they cannot be treated here. And Dr. Barakat made it very clear. It's very complex cases. I have already 11 children in need of evacuations. We have sent them even to private hospitals. They cannot be supported here.
Thank you. And we have time for a second question. So, Mrs. Teunissen.
Yes, thank you. It's actually a follow-up question to Save the Children, because in one of your reports, you say there is a large proportion of children that is waiting in Egypt. And I just want to clarify, which children cannot be, how many children are there who cannot be helped in Egypt? What is the exact reason why they can't be helped in Egypt? And what is the risk if we wait any longer to help these children waiting there?
Mr. Kraan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we speak, we have one of our colleagues in Egypt standing in the hospitals. What we see is that we have 8,000 evacuees that are being treated under the care of the Egyptian healthcare system supported by Save the Children. We know that many of those children have not seen a doctor yet, even after being there for months. So without going into the exact figures, we can already sound the alarm bell that it is a red-hot alert that those children who need that care, and particularly the ones that my colleague Nadia Mohammed just mentioned, are in need for evacuation. and they really need to be treated somewhere else. 55%, imagine that within the boundaries of Europe, we would be burdened with 55% of an evacuation caseload from another conflict. That's unimaginable. And I've often spoken to people in the region, like Princess Basma of the Jordanian royal family, who said, if you would only understand what it requires from us as a people and as a government and as a royal family to welcome all those refugees from Syria and neighboring countries, it will bring us to our knees if you are not in solidarity with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van Baarle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Islim, if I'm correct. And we read in the letter of the Dutch government that in practice they estimate that the children that need medical evacuation and need medical treatments, they estimate is 3 to 4 times higher than the children that are right now on the list for medical evacuation. From your practice and from what you see on the ground, could you please describe the severity of the amount of children that right now on the ground need medical care, and that it is indeed a very much higher amount than the amounts we see right now in official reports?
Yes. So for what you said, it's really, there is 2 important points here. We are talking about MOH estimation or MOH waiting list of 15,600 patients, including 3,800 children. This is really underestimated because the system with the Gaza health system, they are prioritizing the cases. So that's also, they are having this medical committee that review the case, and then they validate, and then they submit through our colleagues in WHO for trying to advocate for those cases to be evacuated. So that's really, not everyone have an access to this medical committee. Not all the patients, they are aware about this process. And for sure, it's not including all the cases that in need of medical evacuation, because there is many, but it is not considered in a way or another like highly urgent cases. But what is important also to mention here, unfortunately, with all this medical evacuation is taking place out of the, I will exclude maybe Egypt, but you have to know that the severe cases, we are talking about the one maybe is medically speaking intubated under medical ventilators, very emergency cases, is not part of the medical evacuation, because the medical evacuation tools or the medical evacuation planes is not equipped with a similar. It's very expensive, and it will take a lot of coordination, and it will take 1 to 2 patients. The majority of countries who's sending this plane is either through the Israeli airports or through transiting Jordan. They are sending most of the time military plane to take as much as patients and companion they can, and everyone is ignoring somehow, or not. It's not an idea of ignoring, but they don't have the capacity of taking acute injuries or that. That was only what's happening between the period when Egypt was opened, because it was like back-to-back ambulance and it was stabilized by medical team. Adding to that, the long waiting period crossing from Gaza, Karm Shalom, from Karm Shalom to Ramon or to the Jordanian, it can reach 12 hours, and you need patients that they are fitting the flights and tolerate this long transportation and until they reach that. They are so complex cases, I can ensure that they are not really on this list.
Thank you. Mrs. Dobbe?
Thank you. I was thinking about something that the WHO said, and that was that they do not evacuate 1 or 2 patients at a time, but they do it in groups, because it's also logical that you do not have a plane with only 1 or 2 patients in it. But I am wondering, what does that mean for medical evacuations to the Netherlands? Because would you advise not only the capacity will allow it, but would you advise not to do it 1 or 2 at a time because you have a plane with only 1 or 2 patients and the rest of the plane is empty? Or how should I look at that? I am just not sure who I should ask this question.
I see Mr. Papercorn moving his hand, so maybe Mr. Papercorn will answer this question.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So there's a couple of, because we are constantly doing this medevac, so let me be very clear. We do this for groups of countries. The medevac which we just did last Monday, 180 plus people, they were going to 4 or 5 different countries. To the UAE, to Italy, to the UK, to Jordan, and I think 1 other country. So we bring these groups together, etc. We make sure that we have a right size. It doesn't work at all in the situation on the ground to do that for 2 or 3 patients, etc. It's a massive operation, security. I will not go into details. So we want to bring every time 180 and 200 patients. So that should be clear, and that's very easily. If the Netherlands, for example, say, well, we want to target 500 patients. I just mentioned something. 500 patients you want to target over the next couple of months. So there will be groups of that, etc. We will combine them with other countries. For example, currently there is the Israeli holidays, so we don't have a medevac, but the next we are pushing for additional medevac. The next medevac we have planned on the 23rd of October. We have 500 patients companions ready. So we have to split that up. They're going to number to various countries. So that is absolutely not an issue. I also want to get back to one thing. It was, I thought, a bit of a strange question about companion. Every patient have a number of caregivers. And you can talk to your Italian colleagues, for example, or other EU countries, etc., how much they will allow. I mean, UK, they allow 4 to 5 companions, and they're always a direct family. I also want to stress that both patients and companions, their security cleared by the Israeli authorities. So that children, we are not even allowed to send a child without a companion. It would be more than cruel that you would send a child without a companion, a mother, a father, a family, direct brother, etc. So that is always happening. And I think what we are all advocating for, and I think I hear this from the whole group, my Egyptian colleagues, the SCF, my MSF, and the Red Cross, we need a combination. So we need to definitely about receiving in the region of patients, which is already happening, and Egypt taking the largest burden, and then the other countries, and we mentioned all of that. You can all find it in the WHO overview. We need to open the corridor to West Bank and East Jerusalem. But besides that, there's an absolute need for countries to open up for these cases which need highly specialized care. And we have been stressing with our discussions with the EU and EU countries, etc. It would be great if from the EU they set a target, like, okay, the EU over the next 6 months, we will be open for 1,000 or 2,000 patients, really make a point. And that divided among the countries where some countries are more specialized in this area than another area, etc., that can be managed. But there's absolutely anyone, even if you say we only want 20 patients or specific children, etc., that can be managed. There will be always companions, caregivers with the patients.
Thank you.
I hope that is clear. Over to you.
Thank you. And we will continue with Mrs. Hirsch.
If I may, I also have a question to Mr. Papercorn. And that is, we have been talking about what's happening in Gaza quite a lot. And it seems sometimes it is a very specific situation. You're at WHO. So I have a double question for you, which is the same question in a sense. So to what extent is the discussion that we have about medical evacuations as we have it now normal, and to what extent is it specific? So why are we discussing this at this moment so extensively, and what calls your attention in this discussion compared to other situations that you have been going at?
Mr. Papercorn.
Yeah, I think that's a complex question, difficult question, but I appreciate it. So first of all, I think the medevac gets rightfully so, I think, a lot of attention, because you talk about critical patients, and today we mainly spoke about children. And again, for WHO, top priority, it has been the majority of the patients. We have now been medevaced. I said from the 8,000 patients, over 5,000 were children, and what is on the list, 15,600, there's another 4,000 children of that. So we definitely, they are prioritized. And I also want to stress, the system in Gaza of prioritization, there is a system what works despite all the immense challenges. It is definitely, as some of my colleagues also said, an underestimation. Like everything is an underestimation, including the number of people killed and the number of people injured. So that's the reality in Gaza. Sometimes, I mean, it stresses me a little bit that, especially in the Netherlands, and being from the Netherlands, that this discussion seems endless and endless going on. And we talk about a few kids. And I am pretty, not matter whatever my political affiliation is, but I am really shocked that being for the Netherlands, where we have a reputation of that we are reaching out, we have a reputation of international collaboration and cooperation, of caring for each other. And it's quite shocking to see how much time this takes. And besides this, there is massive other problems in Gaza. And if you look at health, because I don't disagree that there's no health system anymore. It's a health system which is on the brink of collapse. It's partly functional in some areas, minimal functional. Just coming back from the north, currently the biggest hospitals in the north, Shifa and Al-Ahli, they all have been rendered from partially to absolute minimum functional, and I'm afraid that within days they will be non-functional. We have gone through these cycles before. So we have been as WHO taking out the last patients, and I've been part of this mission, the last patients and the last staff of Nasser, Shifa, and the other hospitals. But then also we made sure that they actually stood up, and that is due to the incredible Gaza health workers, WHO, and many of the other parties here. I also want to really mention our esteemed partner, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, which we closely collaborate in a lot of issues with. So I am a little surprised that indeed these discussions just focus on medevac. Well, there's much more in health, and there's much more in Gaza. So I wish that we get out of this, and I would hope that the Netherlands will, with European countries, will open the arms. And you should maybe discuss with the Italian government, because they have been opening the arms. Romania as well, Spain, UK of late, etc. So please also discuss with those governments why and how, and it is feasible. And if you come with a number, we will make sure it happens. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank all the participants to this meeting, of course here, but also abroad. And by this, I will close this meeting. Thank you for being here.